blah blah. But check. Is it audible? I'll try again. Let me know. Sound check. Okay. Great.
Hello, Mr. Chris.
Hi, Anissa. How are you?
So good. I will be a host.
You'll be the host.
And then I will say host, tapi bukan pengajar.
Bukan?
Bukan pengajar, kan jadi host.
Pengajar means
teacher. I'm not a teacher in here.
Ah.
I'm gonna be a host. Jadi nanti pura-puranya I know nothing about Ielts.
Ah, okay. So if you ask the wrong question, what's gonna happen?
enggak, no.
I think that a hole will open there, and you will fall down.
Enggak.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I may be wrong, maybe right. The same goes for me if I give the wrong answer.
Huh?
By the way, are we supposed to speak like this or like this?
Like that.
It's
With
a
the
bit
mask
less
on.
clear.
I think that's okay, Mr. Chris. Coba nanya Miss Nafi. Miss Nafi, Mr. Chris harus pakai masker atau nggak pakai masker atau gimana? Pakai masker. Mask on.
I was thinking like this. Is it clear now? No? After all. All right, I'll try.
Kalau di hidung nggak clear, Mr. Chris.
Hmm?
If you speak like that, if like your mask is in here is not clear enough. Oh, I see. Hidungnya tebel soalnya. The duck bill one.
Is that the latest model? Is that more fashionable? No.
I will take it for that. Wait a minute. I think that's more comfortable. Mr. Catur, ini TV-nya jadi dibalik apa enggak?
Maybe I could wear a mask with a British flag.
Oh, okay.
A mask with a British flag, that would be cool.
Iya sih, Mr. Chris, tapi kayak...
In fact, American would be even better. Confederate flag, however. I want a Southern flag. Speak with a Southern accent.
Mr. Chris, nanti you have to speak a bit slowly ya.
I'll be talking like
yang gak gitu dong.
I'll be speaking with a Texan accent, man. Don't you be worrying about that at all. Southern drawl. So you're looking over my CV? Are you doing that?
Yes, because I'm going to read your CV first. But it's only for the educations in here and your experience only.
Okay. I thought you were going to read the classes. Let's see. Let's try this one here. Smells of something.
Smells of the factory.
Okay. How long is this going to go for? 1 hour. 1 hour. Okay. Do you have the ambulance number ready, right?
Yep.
Okay. No, this one I'll keep. I'll treasure this. Oh yeah, the harmonica.
And also this, Mr. Chris. Yeah.
Demurely hidden behind it. So how are you going to set up? How are you going to start?
So I'm going to ask you some questions.
What's the first sentence you're going to
Yeah,
pronounce?
but the first I'm going to introduce yourself to the audience.
What's the first sentence you're going to pronounce?
Hi! Good afternoon.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
Hi everyone.
Hai, selamat siang. Perkenalkan, nama saya Miss Anissa. Hari ini saya bersama dengan Mr. Chris and we are going to discuss about Ielts, everything about Ielts.
So you're going to mix the two languages together?
Yes, exactly, bilingual. Soalnya kalau full bahasa Inggris nggak semua understand.
So why would they want to listen to something about IELTS if they don't fully understand?
I don't know, Mr. Chris. Ya begitulah Indonesians ya.
How's my hair?
So good. No. Kancing nomor 2.
Yeah, thank you. Kancing?
Iya, kancing. Sebutkan in here itu bahasa Indonesianya kancing.
Yeah, I didn't think you were speaking Chinese. So you like my batik?
Nah?
Do you like my batik?
Ya, so good. Green. Kayak
In keeping.
daun. Ya, Selamat siang, perkenalkan nama saya Miss Anissa. Hari ini saya akan jadi host untuk acara webinar pada kesempatan siang hari ini. And we are going to discuss everything about Ielts test. Tapi Miss Anissa nggak sendirian nih, because Miss Anissa has a special guest. Ya, guest speaker yang sangat spesial. Namanya adalah Mr. Chris. So you can say hello to the audience, Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone, nice to see you all.
Okay, so Mr. Chris ini kalau you nonton film film barat pasti mengingatkan you pada seorang aktornya. Tahu nggak siapa? Tahu nggak Mr. Chris? Some people say that you look like I forget the name.
Rowan Atkinson.
Exactly, you're correct. Yes, yang jadi Miss Anissa lupa namanya, tapi itu komedi yang sangat popular in the UK. What's the name of the show?
Yeah, I forgot.
Iya, itulah pokoknya ya. Gitu deh. Nah, anyway, hari ini kita akan ngomongin tentang Ielts, and Miss Anissa sudah collected some questions yang didapatkan dari kelas Ielts maupun dari Q&A yang ada di Instagram. Ini live di Instagram dan juga live di YouTube. So, kalau nanti ada audiens yang mau bertanya seputar Ielts, feel free. You can just type your questions on the chat box, nanti akan dibacakan oleh Miss Anissa. Sebelum Miss Anissa tanya banyak sih, kayaknya kita harus perlu tahu nih, Mr. Chris ini siapa? Kenapa Miss Anissa bisa bilang kalau Mr. Chris itu adalah a special guest speaker? Karena ya, tahu nggak? Beliau tentunya adalah native speaker ya, nggak mungkin local speaker kayak Miss Anissa. Native speaker itu berarti bahasa pertamanya itu bahasa Inggris. Jadi penting sekali ketika you are studying bahasa Inggris, belajarlah dari teacher yang kalau bisa native supaya bahasanya itu authentic dan juga natural ya. Nah, Miss Anissa mau baca ini tentang riwayat atau backgroundnya Mr. Chris atau curriculum vitae-nya Mr. Chris. Jadi, Mr. Chris ini ya, so he has finished his education di Italy. Oke, dan beliau mendapatkan gelar BA with honors, jurusannya adalah Philosophy of Language, is it correct?
Correct.
And then, karena mau mengajar bahasa Inggris tentu nggak cukup hanya dengan gelar S1 ya, BA itu S1 kalau di sini. Lalu beliau mengambil sertifikasi untuk bisa mengajar bahasa Inggris, yaitu Teaching English as a Foreign Language, am I correct?
Yep.
Dan beliau mengambilnya di Eropa, jadi beliau sudah certified English teacher. Untuk mengajar spesifikasinya adalah English as a Foreign Language. Untuk negara-negara kayak kita nih, negara-negara berkembang, karena di negara kita bahasa Inggris posisinya tuh bukan as a first language atau as a second language, tapi sebagai foreign language. Tentu treatmentnya di kelas beda, nggak bisa disamakan kayak posisinya negara-negara di mana mereka bahasa keduanya adalah bahasa Inggris. And to my surprise, Mr. Chris ini juga sudah mengambil master degree-nya di Australia, di University of New England, dan beliau mengambil jurusan Applied Linguistics. Wow! Apa itu Applied Linguistics? Intinya hubungannya dengan bahasa ya, nggak mungkin dengan biologi atau matematika. Dan ternyata ini nilainya very surprising. Beliau itu lulus dengan nilai yang sangat amazing, jadi distinctive ya. So you got high distinctions in here. Jadi long story short, misalnya saya mau bikin bacain 2 sebanyak ini, tapi long story short, beliau adalah orang yang sangat kompeten ketika mau mengajar IELTS. Tapi Miss, tunggu dulu deh. Iya kan kayaknya kalau guru-guru di ION semuanya punya sertifikasi seperti ini. Terus apa spesialnya? Tahu nggak sih? In 2019, ini sambil berdebar-debar misalnya saya bacanya ya. In 2019, Mr. Chris moved to China to work for the British Council as an IELTS examiner. Am I correct? Jadi ternyata hari ini Mr. Chris spesial karena beliau adalah used to be an IELTS examiner when you were in China.
Yep.
Dan kita akan langsung dari sumbernya, ini pasti udah autentik, ini udah pasti reliable, ini udah pasti akurat banget sumbernya. Mantan IELTS examiner waktu di China. Nah, kalau mau bertanya silahkan nih, mumpung dia mendapatkan pengetahuan langsung dari sumbernya. Apalagi kalau speaking, dia pasti suka berdebar-debar kan kalau speaking. Aduh Miss, takut kalau aku speaking. Apalagi kalau ngelihat mukanya Mr. Chris atau kadang-kadang examinernya nggak ramah karena mereka looks foreign. Nah, jangan khawatir, kita akan nanya berbagai mitos yang kadang-kadang itu bertebaran di Indonesian IELTS test takers. Okay, Mr. Chris, so I'm gonna start with the first questions.
Please.
You want to say something to the audience or no?
I think you spoken at length.
Okay, so Mr. Chris, the first questions ini adalah questions yang very common. Is IELTS test difficult?
Well, to cut a long story short, Miss Anissa, yes, I think it's difficult. It's not an easy test for first-time takers. May encounter difficulties of all sorts. So, if you ask me in general, yes, it's not easy. In fact, I would go so far as to say that most speakers of the English language, even though they may be native speakers like myself or my colleagues, a lot of people expect, okay, he's a native speaker, it's gonna be an easy 9, band 9 maximum. On the contrary, I'd go so far as to tell everybody, don't think that everybody who speaks English at a native level could ever score a 9 so easily. They have to be on a very good day. Myself, if I've woken up and I'm just on, you woke up and get off the bed on the wrong foot, you just not feel like speaking very much. And it happens to all of us on a daily basis. Sometimes you just wake up, you're not in the mood. Do you think I'm gonna score a 9? I don't think so. I'm just going to be very nonchalant and just give short answers. That's not going to improve my score. So, to just cut a long story short, it's not that all native speakers will automatically get 9. In fact, I know a lot of native speakers who would struggle to get a 7.5.
Jadi intinya adalah misconception yang pertama, jangan dikira wah kalau native speakers itu pasti automatically akan dapat nilai 9. Ya kadang-kadang nggak juga. Kok nggak gitu sih Miss Anissa? Padahal kan itu kan bahasa pertamanya. Jadi gini ya, if you are sitting for an IELTS test, itu kan 1 hari for speaking misalnya. Banyak external factor yang juga berpengaruh. Contohnya mood pada hari itu, ya kan? Bangun jam berapa, makannya apa. Jadi if you are going to sit for an IELTS test, make sure that you are in a good mood. Makan yang enak, hatinya senang, supaya kalau ditanya itu bisa jawab. bisa jawab maksudnya adalah antara otak berkoordinasi dengan baik, language productions-nya itu juga bagus, dan juga hatinya bagus. Karena kadang-kadang questions-nya adalah unpredictable. Oke, talking about questions in IELTS, especially for speaking, Mr. Chris. So, sebenarnya, lupa, misalnya saya harus ngomongnya pakai bahasa Inggris. So, frankly speaking, are the questions in IELTS speaking designed to frustrate the students?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I especially would like to underline your word choice, frustrate. Frustration is a bad feeling. I mean, the spirit of the IELTS test is that the students must feel like it's a conversation, it's a friendly conversation with some other individual, and they should be having fun. And I'll say more. As an examiner, I was trained to actually make the students have a good time, like endeavor to get the students to enjoy the conversation. Because if I wasn't, somebody would have come to me and said, you're not doing your job correctly. The student is not having a good time. The student is not stimulated to speak naturally. Therefore, you're not doing things right, Mr. Chris. This is not good. I mean, I would have gotten somebody to reprimand me. So in other words, it's a friendly conversation. It's designed and specifically engineered to be the friendly moment of your morning, afternoon, so that you can be relaxed and produce as much language as possible.
Oh, oke. Jadi tadi pertanyaan Miss Anissa adalah apakah kalau pertanyaan untuk IELTS itu pasti memusingkan kita semua? And the answer is no. Oke, perlu di-underline jawabannya enggak. Nah, kadang-kadang tuh kita selalu berpikir bahwa kalau kita mau IELTS speaking itu seolah-olah kayak mau sidang skripsi, thesis defense. And the questions are going to be very rude. In fact, tidak seperti itu. It's a daily conversation biasa. Jadi, tolong kalau misalnya boleh memberikan saran, get rid of negative feeling atau negative thoughts yang ada di kepala. Karena nggak seseram itu. Justru yang kadang-kadang membuat kita susah untuk bisa memproduksi bahasa dengan bagus adalah kekhawatiran kita. Ketakutan kita sendiri kalau kita membuat kesalahan. Nah, padahal si IELTS examiner ini berusaha sekali untuk menciptakan suasana yang nyaman, suasana yang secure untuk dia bisa mengekspresikan your emotions, your feelings, supaya nanti akhirnya adalah bahasa yang keluar atau expression yang keluar juga adalah yang appropriate, yang tepat untuk bisa mendapatkan skor yang diinginkan. Tapi Miss, kadang-kadang nggak gitu, kadang-kadang examinernya itu nggak ramah dan sebagainya. Perlu dipahami ya, bahwa an IELTS examiner especially for speaking itu jadwalnya tuh padat. Jadi sehari misalnya harus menjadi examiners dan participants-nya itu test takersnya ada 10. Nah, masing-masing kan dapat 10 sampai 15. Jadi dimaklumi. Misalnya kalau pada waktu itu mungkin mukanya capek atau mukanya tidak friendly, mukanya tidak welcome, tapi they are trying to look good ya, Mr. Chris, over all the problems. Oh, begitu ya ceritanya. Okay sih. Okay. So, talking about IELTS, we've got two types of IELTS, the academic one and the general one, yeah, Mr. Chris. So, I think most of the students are taking the academic one because they want to study overseas.
Yeah.
So, by this, does it mean that all the questions are designed in an academic setting?
It depends what you academic setting. It's more about writing part 1. The most striking difference is writing part 1. In writing part 1, academic, you have to actually analyze either a graph or a pie chart or a map, and you have to have some kind of analytical skills. So that kind of means a little bit of academic skills in terms of interpretation of the lines, of the values. Whereas in writing part 1, you're basically writing a letter. So it's slightly less formal, more personal probably. You can take more liberties. Writing part 1 academic, where you have to analyze the graph, it's slightly more professional, I would say. But yeah, it's nonetheless difficult.
I see. Oke, jadi ya memang benar sih academic, tapi nggak sebegitunya ya. Karena IELTS kan untuk semua jenjang usia itu sama. Compared to TOEFL, we've got TOEFL Junior for junior high school students. If you're a junior high school students and you are going to take the IELTS test, the questions are going to be the same. Okay, questions are going to be the same. If like they don't have any special test for special age Am I right?
Yeah.
So if you're in junior high school and you have got a brother and he is in senior high school and your papa is also going to take the IELTS test and all the questions are going to be the same. Yeah, there is no difference. Tapi tunggu dulu deh. Kalau di Indonesia kan kita tidak belajar specifically for IELTS. Indonesian curriculum doesn't teach IELTS specifically. Berarti intinya kita harus go extra mile karena kita nggak tahu dapat resources dari mana belajar IELTS kalau nggak dari les misalnya. If you're in high school nggak ada materials tentang IELTS specifically. Speaking, reading, listening, writing itu ada, tapi materialsnya are not going to be IELTS. Okay, Mr. Chris, if students in Indonesia will have limited exposure to bahasa Inggris and they want to start learning IELTS because they are going to take the IELTS test in the near future. So, the question is, what do we need to do first, Mr. Chris?
That's a golden question. What do you need to do first? It very much depends on the level. In my opinion, it depends on the level of the students. So if you start at a very basic level, I would call it a band 4 IELTS, like if you cannot express yourself clearly in English, to be honest with you, I wouldn't even try to learn IELTS. I would just try to improve the basic aspects of your English. But if you want to improve your already acquired IELTS score, you may have already taken the test once and having been familiarized with it, you know exactly what you need in order to improve your score. At that point, what students need to do, in order to gain exposure to the English language, the basic ways are the old-time ways. I mean, there's the one recommendation that I always give my students is reading. And I can never get tired of saying, whatever you do, you need to read. I mean, you want to speak better, you just need to read, and then do a little bit more of reading. And when you're tired, you can read some more. So this is the point that I would like to make. And many students find it a little bit tiresome, like they don't quite like to read. The only solution in this case that I have, in fact, that I never get tired of saying, is you don't need to read specific academic stuff. In fact, I'd advise against it. If you get bored while you're reading, it's not a good idea. Because if you get bored, you're not picking up anything. But if you actually have fun reading, like you read something that you're interested in, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's in English. Just familiarize yourself with the English language. And this goes for reading, as well as speaking, listening. Like you need to follow speaking, you don't need to follow an academic course. You need to follow some podcast that talks about stuff that you like. I can recommend Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe Rogan is great. He talks about everything and anything to anybody. From Elon Musk to this guy, I mean everybody.
Yeah, so students can imitate the way he speaks, yeah, hopefully.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I mean try to understand and try to mimic the expressions and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great way. I mean, we all start like that. I mean, we don't start walking because our parents teach us how to walk. Our parents don't come to us and say, hey, now you got to put this foot in front of the other foot and then you got to move the weight a little bit forward. No, we just look at them.
Yeah, as an example.
We imitate them.
Try to imitate. Okay, jadi intinya adalah pertanyaan Miss Anissa tuh kayak gini. Kita tahu di negara kita exposure bahasa Inggris nggak banyak. Kita tahu bahwa jam belajar bahasa Inggris juga sedikit. Tapi requirements untuk Indo kalau mau keluar nggak akan diturunin. Jadi nggak ada beda. Bukan karena kita di negara yang tidak berbahasa Inggris terus, oh kamu dari Indonesia ya. Not all Indonesians speak bahasa Inggris, berarti requirements untuk sekolah luar negeri misalnya 5 aja cukup deh. Nggak ada kayak gitu, sama aja semua di semua di seluruh dunia tuh sama. Itu bukan excuse. Miss, tapi kan kita tuh feel like miserable banget. Kita nggak punya exposure, kita harus targetnya segitu. Okay. Menurut Mr. Chris, yang paling pertama ketika kita harus I think in the next 3 years or in next year I'm going to take an IELTS test. Aku masih nggak tahu harus bagaimana. Start with reading. Ada dua tipe reading, ada extensive reading, ada intensive reading. Yang Mr. Chris bilang adalah extensive reading. So, bacalah apapun yang you suka. Reading habit. Make reading as your habit, am I correct?
Make reading as your hobby.
Yes, as your hobby. Betul sekali. Jadi paksa membaca. Dari membaca itu kita dapat exposure. Oh, beginilah cara meletakkan kalimat. Oh, beginilah caranya. Misalnya ada namanya reading aloud. Jadi you bisa try to understand. Oh, begini pronunciationsnya. Oh, begini caranya. Oh, begini cara orang membuat a story, membuat paragraf yang bagus, bagaimana mereka mengorganize ideas dan juga ada cohesions yang ada di situ, bagaimana mereka menyampaikan dengan grammar yang tepat. Jadi reading is very important. Tapi Miss Anissa tahu si reading itu tidak menyenangkan. Pasti ada aja alasannya ya kan, excusesnya. Nggak bisa Miss, readingnya tidak menyenangkan. Nggak bisa Miss, aku nggak bisa reading Ielts. Ini nggak ngerti bacaan apa. Come on Miss, aku masih kelas 2 SMA. Disuruh bacaan yang very academic, aku kan bukan anak kuliahan, terus gimana dong? Miss Anissa mengerti. Jadi mungkin itu ada kesalahan di situ ya. Kita itu tidak suka membaca, sekali membaca disuruh langsung untuk mengerjakan soal. Semua orang akan menolak karena tidak suka. Jadi yang paling utama adalah gemarilah membaca. Make reading as your hobby. Semakin sering membaca, reading speednya akan semakin okay. Exposure-nya akan semakin bagus, dan ini belum ada bukti ilmiahnya sih ya, tapi biasanya receptive skill akan berperan sebagai input for productive skill. Karena kita tuh kadang-kadang kalau ngomong tuh nggak diajarin, tapi kita melihat contohnya, dan kadang-kadang unconsciously kita berusaha untuk imitate. Jadi kalau you bertanya, kok Miss Anissa bisa memproduksi bahasa semacam itu? Nggak tahu, mungkin Miss Anissa pernah terpapar in a positive way dalam bahasa ya. Oh, pernah membaca tidak sadar masuk ke otak. Oh, pernah mendengar tidak sadar masuk ke otak. Jadi make reading as your hobby. Kalau masih buat excuse, ya jangan ngarang-ngarang dong. Masa mau dapat 6,5 kalau nggak suka membaca? Aduh, please deh, jangan ngarang-ngarang, ini bukan ketok magic. Voila, Miss Anissa sebulan langsung dapat 6,5. Bisa sih, tapi tolong ya 24 jam, 4 jam tidur, 20 jam membaca. Mau kayak gitu? Of course enggak kan? Okay, Mr. Chris, thank you for your nice suggestions. But I'm gonna start with at least to get 6.5 band score. So how to get 6.5 overall?
Well, the score is subdivided into 4 criteria. So it depends on what we're talking about. If it's speaking, it's slightly different from writing. But anyway, speaking and writing follow the same, more or less the same criteria. The first one is task achievement, or fluency and cohesion. Then you have coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation, basically. But this is across writing and speaking. So if you're talking about speaking, we need to basically, we have 4 marks, from 1 to 9. 1 is impossible. 1 means that basically you're silent. 9 means that you're not only very good, you're actually brilliant. So what you need to get a 6.5, a 6.5 would be the average. In general, a 6.5 would be 2 6s and 2 7s. Or alternatively, also 3 7s and 1 6 will only give you a 6.5. So basically, you approximate to the next fraction by defect. So in other words, if you don't quite get there, you don't get it. So 3 6s and 1 7 will also only get you a 6. So you got to get the 6.5 precise, bang, on the spot. So 2 6s and 2 7s is the usual way of getting a 6.5.
Okay, jadi mau dapat 6,5 ini kita pakai ilmu kalkulasi skor aja ya. Jadi harus dapat 7, 2, 7-nya 2, 6-nya 2. Kalau gitu mungkin yang paling bisa dianalisis adalah 7 untuk listening dan reading dua-duanya. Lalu 6 itu untuk speaking dan juga writing-nya. Atau 7-nya ada 3, 6-nya ada 1, itu juga masih dapat 6,5. Oh, gitu ya Miss Anissa. Berarti kalau mau dapat nilai 7 untuk listening atau reading itu kira-kira harus betul berapa ya Miss? Ya sekitar 27, 29, 30-an. Berarti ya maksimal salahnya hanya sekitar 10 ya. Jadi kalau mengerjakan listening and reading di kalkulator ini sendiri, ini udah salah berapa kira-kira? Kalau writing sama speaking mau dapat 6 itu gimana Miss Anissa? Most university will require you to get at least 6 or 6.5 for speaking and writing ya Mr. Chris. What does it mean to get 6.5 in speaking and writing? I mean, how do you interpret the score of 6.5 in both speaking and writing?
Okay, let's start with speaking. 6.5 in speaking means a competent speaker. who can maintain the flow of conversation and express his or her ideas in a clear way. Still, hesitation and some mistakes are perfectly acceptable. In fact, you can very well get a 7 by making quite a few mistakes here and there. It's not a big problem. For writing, it's the same idea. We differentiate between occasional mistakes and systematic mistakes. Furthermore, by occasional mistakes, it's like one every once in a while. Systematic, it's like something you didn't quite get about grammar. So occasional mistakes are perfectly fine. So the same goes for other kinds of mistakes like in speaking, pronunciation. It's perfectly fine to make a few mistakes here and there. You'll still get a 6.5. So the best, to get back to your question, if you want to score a 6.5, what does it look like? It looks like pretty much you can speak very well, and every once in a while you stop to look for a word, you're not sure about how to say this, so you find another way of saying it. The important thing to point out here is that the flow of conversation cannot be interrupted. You cannot stop for a long time to think about what to say. It's important that, you just pay attention to having a good conversation with someone.
Oke, jadi gini, bisa akan mulai dari 6,5 ya, jadi 6,5 and above, tapi kita mulai dari 6,5 dulu ya. Ini untuk bisa secure positions if you want to study overseas, minimal 6,5 for both speaking and writing. Tapi nanti kalau mau ada yang kira-kira request, Miss bikin lagi dong IELTS webinar seri kedua supaya dapat nilai 7.5 and above. Aduh, with all my pleasure ya Mr. Chris. Jadi gini, dari Mr. Chris tadi tuh bilang 6,5 itu speaking itu aku harus bagaimana? Pertama tentu speaknya harus speak at length ya. Hesitation boleh ada tapi nggak boleh terlalu banyak. Atau kalau pausing ya jangan tiba-tiba ngomong terus abis itu berhenti. Aduh, kayak nunggu angkot aja. Ya nggak boleh gitu ya. Jadi ngomong kalau bisa ngomongnya teratur, jadi fluent begitu. Error gimana Miss? Aku tuh gini loh Miss, kalau ngomong tanpa henti tuh kadang-kadang nggak bisa, ada self corrections, ada hesitations di situ. Ada kira-kira pausing for a moment karena looking for the answers. Gimana? Itu masih boleh nggak Miss? Boleh sih, masih boleh untuk 6,5 tapi jangan panjang-panjang. Mungkin nggak boleh dari lebih dari 5 seconds ya, karena itu akan menunggu lumayan lama. Oh gitu ya bisa Nisa, berarti masih nggak apa-apa? Nggak apa-apa. Beneran? Iya nggak apa-apa. Kalau writing, yes.
One more thing I would like to say actually, there is another kind of differentiation between two kinds of mistakes. There is a mistake, for example, that some people make. I'd like to point it out, like they use the present tense in the past. Basically, they refer to past situations using the present tense. So this stems directly from the Indonesian language. It's a very common mistake across Indonesian speakers. And I have to say, I heard the same mistakes from all parts, even from professional speakers. Now, for example, yesterday I go.
Yeah.
That's a classical mistake. Why? Because we call it L1 mistake. It means it stems from the fact that in your first language, that's how you think. Okay. So naturally, when you're with the flow of speech, you're having a conversation, you tend not to think too much about these aspects. So if you want to keep up the flow of speech, keep up the conversation running, it's fine. You can make this mistake. It happens. Now, this mistake, does it make me not understand what you mean? The answer is no. I understand exactly what you mean. I'm perfectly aware of the message you want to convey. So if the mistake does not impede understanding, it doesn't really matter so much. It matters, when you want to score 8 or 9. Yeah, at that point we will take that into consideration.
Oh, itu baru pertanyaan Mr. Nisa. Dan ininya begini nih. Ini sering banget terjadi ya. Jadi kalau IELTS itu kan orang mikir ya, oh berarti aku harus ngomong aja nih, gak usah bedelin grammar. Ya nggak gitu juga dong. Kalau mau dapat yang jadi professional, kalau 6.5 kan disebutnya sebagai competent speaker. Itu nggak apa-apa kalau salah. Jadi misalnya questionsnya adalah in simple past tense, kita jawabnya pakai simple present tense. So for example, what did you do yesterday? I got to my friend's house. Itu nggak bisa. Hello, masa I go to my friend's house yesterday? Aduh, itu kelas 1 SMP loh padahal. Harusnya I went, not I go. Tapi si examiner paham maksudnya dan nggak bakal berkenyut dahi frowning yang kayak, nih bocah ngomong apa ya? masa bilangnya I go bukan I went. Itu tidak ada permasalahan di bagian maksudnya. Jadi examinernya paham si test takernya ngomong apa, itu masih oke, walaupun grammarnya salah, oke? Harusnya pakai simple past tense, malah pakai simple present tense, tapi it doesn't affect the meaning. Misalnya Mr. Chris masih bisa paham, itu masih bisa dapat 6,5. Tapi ya jangan sering-sering dong. Tapi beda case-nya kalau mau dapat 7 and above, jangan ngadi-ngadi, jangan ngarang-ngarang. 7 and above itu kalau bisa itu sudah sangat sedikit grammatical errors-nya. Oke, jadi kalau grammatical errors masih banyak dapat nilai 7 and above, udah wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh alias it's very hard to achieve. Jadi jangan ngarang-ngarang ya. Wah, berarti nggak mungkin dong mesti aku dapat 7 kalau masih kayak gitu. Ya mungkin aja, tapi belajarlah terlebih dahulu. Gitu kurang lebih ya. Kenapa bisa seperti itu? Itu jangan langsung kita bilang aku tuh nggak bisa, bukan. Itu namanya adalah L1 interventions, am I correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Karena di bahasa Indonesia, kalau kita belajar target language, itu pasti kita biasanya mengeneralisasi, generalization if I'm not mistaken in second language acquisitions.
Yeah, it's actually called interference.
Yes, interference-nya. Jadi apakah bahasa pertama itu sama dengan bahasa kedua? Kalau sama, fluent. Tapi kalau enggak, agak susah kita untuk bisa memahaminya. Dalam bahasa Indonesia tidak ada simple past tense yang pakai ed atau yang irregular dan regular verbs-nya. Tapi kalau dalam bahasa Inggris ada. Jadi kita suka nggak aware. Aduh Miss, iya ya, hal-hal yang kayak gitu tuh yang kadang-kadang membuat kita tuh nggak fluent Miss. Karena salah grammar tuh amat sangat menakut-nakutkan. Kita akan bahas itu, tapi tunggu dulu. Misalnya akan ke writing tadi ya. Jadi speaking clear sekarang. Yang penting fluent, hesitation sedikit tidak apa-apa, pausing sedikit saja tidak apa-apa. Yang penting you can keep the conversation going. Jadi misalnya mau menyoroti masalah writingnya. Ada yang namanya occasional errors, ada yang namanya systematic errors.
Yeah.
Mechanical ya, systematic errors. Intinya adalah occasional errors itu karena kecerobohan kita. Karena misalnya keburu-buru waktu, lupa pakai articles, masih dimaafkan. Tapi ada yang namanya systematic errors, yang artinya adalah bukan error, jadi mistakes itu 1, 2 itu masih oke lah. Tapi mungkin beberapa orang akan bilang errors itu adalah mistakes yang permanen. Am I correct?
Permanent mistakes, yeah, you can say that.
Kalau misalnya bikin, kurang articles, oke. Ini nggak bisa pakai simple present tense. Subject and verb agreement-nya masih oke. Tapi kok di semua paragraf dia subject and verb agreement-nya salah semua. Itu namanya bukan ketidaksengajaan. Itu namanya sudah tidak bisa. Gitu kan? Jadi kita akan belajar lebih lanjut yang namanya occasional errors dengan systematic errors. Oke, Mr. Chris. What types of grammatical aspects that are usually considered to be occasional errors?
Occasional errors, for example, is the S at the end of the verb in the present tense, like with a he, she, it, with a third person. That is a classical occasion, oversight, let's call it. So the students may fail to put the S. And others, like you mentioned before, the ED for the past simple, or there's all kinds of occasional errors can happen everywhere. It can happen to me too if I'm writing. I'm just thinking of something and just delete one piece of the sentence and then replace it with another one and do not correct what comes before because now it has to be in agreement with what follows. It's a lot of different stuff, but one thing that I would like to point out is that the focus appears to be a lot on these individual mistakes. So now we are talking about grammar. It is a misconception that grammar is comprised of grammatical mistakes in the sense of like S for the third person, ED from the past. Of course, there's that. But there's a lot more to be taken into consideration for an Ielts writing. A lot more and completely different. That is actually specified in the band descriptors. And if you have a look at the band descriptors for writing, you will find a lot of words that you're not aware of and a lot of descriptions that you just can't quite understand. Like, you get the meaning of the words, but what does that actually mean? We can talk about that in a second, of course. I'm sure you'll be asking me about it. But basically, it's not only the individual mistakes. What I mean by this is that individual mistakes, as long as they do not affect understanding, are still okay.
Okay. Oh begitu ya. Jadi intinya adalah jangan khawatir pada occasional error. Karena misalnya saya paham sih, kita harus menulis selama dua task for 60 minutes, types-nya berbeda, ngebut, oke. Jadi antara ideas muncul di sini sama grammatical accuracy-nya harus balance, itu nggak semua orang bisa dengan speed yang sebegitu cepatnya. Jadi kalau kayak gitu gimana Nisa? Ya kita akan menulis aja, karena kalau kita nulisnya di bawah yang minta, nah kita akan nanya, kita ditunggu ya. Jadi kita pasti nulis kan, pokoknya udah yang penting komplit Miss, 150, 250, oke, nulis, keep going. Tapi grammarnya salah. Misalnya nih, misalnya mau ngomong the government itu kan subjeknya singular, ya kan? Misalnya the government argues, harusnya pakai s, and nggak pakai s, salah tuh subject and verb agreement. Aduh Miss, terus skor aku gimana dong? 6,5 jauh sudah dari harapan, begitu ya Miss? Jangan gitu juga, masih ada kesempatan, karena itu namanya adalah occasional error. Jadi itu masih bisa diampuni, masih bisa dimaafkan, karena examiner masih paham maksudnya, walaupun itu agak sedikit tidak indah dipandang mata, ya kan? Mengganggu banget rasanya ya, risih gitu. Atau misalnya nih ada beberapa pilihan vocabulary yang oke, ini kayaknya masih bisa dipahami, walaupun tidak pada tempatnya, tidak selalu kontekstual, tapi masih so-so oke, itu masih bisa 6,5. But Mr. Chris, what do you mean by what is the another type of the error? Occasional error and
Systematic
error. Okay, so what's the example of the systematic error?
What I mentioned before about the present being used to refer to past situations, or if I can give an example that I come across pretty often, is, for example, the use of the verb to be to form verbal forms like, and I quote, I am go, end quote. This is a classical mistake, and it's somewhat systematic. Again, it's L1 interference or mixed with some erroneous teaching in the past. I don't know what happened, but basically this happens a lot. This is a systematic mistake. It is also a difficult part of the English language, the verb to be honest with you. So these are systematic mistakes that can happen, or the ing form at the end of the verb, how you use it, when you use it. Prepositions are a nightmare for all students. Prepositions are always the most difficult part of any language. So using the wrong preposition happens. It's one of the phases of understanding a new language. You just have to understand prepositions, and there's no rule. You have to memorize, basically.
There is no explanations.
Absolutely none whatsoever. You cannot provide an explanation because it's just usage. How people say. Why do we say in the morning? Why do we say in the afternoon?
Exactly.
And why do we say at night?
But not in
At
the night.
At night. We don't say in the night. So there is no reason. Why is it like this? I'm sorry, it's the English language. Any complaints, you can turn them over to the Queen.
Yeah, exactly. Because language is an agreement, is arbitrary.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no explanation. Kenapa namanya meja? Dari sononya jangan ngarang-ngarang. Pokoknya namanya meja harus punya deskripsi 4 kaki. Ini 4 kaki, namanya bukan meja. Ini maksudnya namanya, ini 4 kaki, namanya kursi bukan meja. Jadi intinya begini nih. Jadi kan misalnya tanya, kalau yang systematic error tuh kayak gimana? Kalau occasional error kan masih diampuni tuh. Misalnya subject and verb agreement, artikelnya kurang, atau vocabulary yang tidak tepat sasaran. Tapi kalau systematic error itu ya akan mau tidak mau mereduce your score. Maksudnya contohnya Miss, ini yang sering banget nih, dicatat ya, ambil pulpen, ambil kertas catat, to be taruh di mana-mana, risih deh. Oke, I am agree with you. Nah, itu nggak bisa. Nah, jangan ngadi-ngadi yuk. Nggak bisa, I am agree with you bahasa mana? Nggak boleh kok Miss, nggak bisa dong, agree itu verb, am itu to be, jangan pakai to be kalau sudah punya verb. Jadi I am agree with you itu tidak ada. I'm agree with the statement tidak ada. Itu yang salah. Peletakan to be. Tapi misalnya saya maklumi, karena orang Indonesia dulu ketika in elementary school, expressions, the first expression that they learn adalah I am. I am Miss Nisa. I am 21 years old. I am the first child. I am, and I am. Jadi I am-nya nggak bisa lepas. To be itu lekat dengan subjek. Padahal itu konsep yang salah. Nggak semua to be itu harus setelah subjek, itu adalah systematic error. Tolong itu diperhatikan pertama kali. Yang kedua adalah tenses. Tenses itu nggak semuanya pakai simple present tense. Ada 3 time zones, ada future, ada present, ada past. Orang dia ngomong present kok pakai simple past. Orang dia bilang simple past ngomongnya pakai present. Mungkin kita nggak ngerasa kejadiannya Miss Anissa? When did it happen? It's in the past. Where is the verb to? Nggak ada Miss. Ya udah, salah alamat dia ngomong apa, native speaker menerimanya apa, udah nggak bisa jalan berdua tuh, udah salah aja itu di situ. Tense is also important, dan juga verb in, ya. Verb in itu kadang-kadang. Verb in itu memang banyak posisinya. Sebagai predicate harus pakai to be, sebagai adjective, noun sebagai gerund, verb sebagai participle juga bisa. Itu yang perlu kita pelajari. Itu intinya adalah contoh-contoh dari systematical errors. Kalau pada 6,5 perhatikan dengan baik-baik ya yang ada di situ. Okay, Mr. Chris, thank you. I've got it. Now I'm going to move on to the next questions. It's about like the fluency for speaking. Mr. Chris, which one is more important? If the case is like the student is not good at fluency and accuracy when it comes to speaking, it feels like I want to speak, but I'm thinking about if I am using the correct grammatical aspects. But if I have to think of the correct grammatical aspects, it's going to affect my fluency because I'm going to slow down. In this case, which one is more essential to be mastered? Fluency first or accuracy first? In case they can go both hand in hand together.
Well, there are two different criteria. So fluency is one criteria and grammatical accuracy is another one. So basically this question here is like asking me, is it better to score 7 and 5 or 5 and 7? And the answer is in both cases you will get an average of 6. So there is not a preference over the other in general. I would say do as you feel it natural for you to do. Don't worry too much about one or the other. In my specific case, if you ask me personally, I'm one of those people who cares a lot about accuracy as well. So for example, if you ask me to speak in Bahasa Indonesia, I'll be very shy because I have to be very accurate. I cannot tolerate myself speaking an incorrect sentence. So I'm just very careful. So that will sacrifice my fluency. But that's just the way I am. A lot of people are like me. Other people instead feel like communicating at all times and will just sacrifice grammatical accuracy in order to just speak. So it kind of depends on your personality. This is not a general statement that I wish to make. I think it's great to hear you speak and it's great to hear grammatical accuracy. And I think if you look after one, eventually the other will come. So if you pay attention, personally speaking, if I may give this advice, and just very personal, I think grammatical accuracy should come first. Because adjusting grammatical accuracy when you're already fluent is more difficult than adjusting fluency when you're grammatically accurate. So first you get the grammar down. By that I mean you're just sure everything I say is flawless. Then you can speed up. But if you're already fast, you tend to disregard these things because you notice one thing: people understand you nonetheless. People will still understand you, so you're just like, well, whatever, they got it, so what's the point of getting more accuracy? So this is probably where I lean towards. This is, I slightly lean towards grammatical accuracy, but I'm a grammarian, so.
Okay. Jadi begini ceritanya, ini kan sering sekali terjadi nih kasusnya. Yes, aku kalau misalnya ngomong fluent, oke, tapi grammarku ketinggalan. Oke, grammar aku tuh nggak bisa berjalan bersama dengan fluency. Kalau miss mau aku ngomongnya grammatically correct, I'm sorry miss, aku akan terbata-bata, mungkin in chunks aku ngomongnya. Terus aku harus milih gimana miss? Jawabannya agak susah untuk bisa dikabulkan sih, karena seharusnya dua-duanya bisa berjalan bersamaan. Fluency-nya oke, grammarnya juga sama. Tapi miss, waktu aku terbatas, next week atau next month, in the next 2 months aku harus ngambil Ielts dan aku harus speed up, aku harus gimana miss? Okay, menurut Mr. Chris, karena beliau sangat pays attention to the grammatical aspect, benerin dulu grammarnya. Okay? Grammarnya benerin dulu, seenggaknya bisa simple present, simple past, future, aman, fluency membersamai. Karena akan lebih susah untuk bisa mengalahkan grammar daripada mengalahkan fluency. You know what I'm saying? Jadi kalau orang berpikir, udah aku ngomong aja, grammarnya nggak peduli, berarti dia tidak betul-betul paham Ielts itu untuk apa. Ya udah yang penting ngomong aja kan guys. Iya, tapi grammarnya juga harus oke. Nah, mungkin beberapa examiners akan lebih memilih memberikan skor yang lebih oke kepada mereka yang lebih memperhatikan grammar daripada fluency. Tapi kalau bisa dua-duanya oke deh ya, gitu deh. Mr. Chris, about speaking, Okay, there is one question I remember from one student yang mau tanya ini di kelas, Mr. Chris, it's all about lexical resources. Is it true that we have to at least use one idiom and more sophisticated words when it comes to speaking?
Well, just like the question before, which was an interesting question, by the way, and I would like to say one more thing regarding the previous question that will also refer to the present question here. Now, what I said before is good for people who want to achieve a very high score. So look after the grammar before looking after fluency. That is, if you're aiming for extremely high scores. But if your aim is just a 6.5, you can overlook a few aspects of grammar and just take care of your fluency. Like, make sure that you can actually be fluent without interrupting your speech too often. Okay? This is one thing. It depends on your aim. Like I said, I'm a perfectionist, so I always want to speak perfectly. But some people will just be happy with a 6.5. They just get to uni. That's it. When they get there, something will happen, I suppose. The same is for your question regarding idioms.
Idioms and sophisticated words.
And sophisticated words. I mean, what does idioms exactly mean? May I turn over the question to you? What do you think an idiom is? I'll ask you in general. There's one difference that we should draw between idioms and idiomatic expressions. Now, an idiom is, for example, when you kill two birds with a stone. It means, well, you all know what it means, right? Or when you say a phrase that is used in normal language to express a metaphorical aspect of reality. So this is an idiom. This sounds a little bit too complicated. Like, I'd expect students to be willing to memorize these sentences, take them down from the book, English Idioms, page 229. Let's memorize this one here. And let's try to stick it into our speech. That's not the whole story. Idiomatic language, and this is one important point that I would like to make. Idiomatic language can rest solely upon phrasal verbs. So now English has got a funny history. It's got some verbs that come from the French language. Some verbs come from Germanic languages. Germanic.
Okay.
Germanic is the father of English. Let's put it this way. It's related to other language, a branch of languages that basically uses these verbs on a daily basis. So to cut a long story short, the complicated words are the so-called academic words. But in normal speech, we replace an academic word with a phrasal verb. And that's what we call idiomatic speech as well. So for example, I can say that I didn't do something on this at this moment here. I decided to do it later. I can say this in two ways. I can use an academic Latinate word, I postponed it. Or I could say, I put it off. In the one case, I'm using a more academic term, more high class. In the other case, I'm using the people's language. The people's language is also what's understood as idiomatic expressions, because they are not exactly the same meaning as the words themselves describe. Put this off, what does it mean? You have to know it in that it's an idiomatic expression. So that's the main point that I would like to make. Idiomatic expressions is not only proverbs and sayings and stuff like that. If you can actually memorize a few phrasal verbs or incorporate them in your speech, not memorize, sounds bad, but you know what I mean, that helps a lot. That signals to the examiner that you are confident with the language. You know how to use the language the way actual English people, American people, Australian people do. Because that's what we say. We would never say, I postponed it.
Okay, interesting. Ih, itu kena banget jawabannya pokoknya. Paham nggak beliau ngomong apa? Oke, Miss Anissa akan mencoba menjelaskan supaya kita di perahu yang sama ya. Jadi begini maksudnya Mr. Chris, kan sering banget tuh orang nanya, Miss, aku harus pakai idiom segala, aku harus pakai language yang misalnya menunda harus bilangnya postpone. Padahal aku tahunya ya cuma apa ya Miss? Kadang-kadang bilangnya cancel, kadang-kadang bilangnya delay, put off aja aku nggak tahu Miss. Nah begini ceritanya ya. Memang kalau bisa pakai idiomatic expressions itu lebih bagus. Tapi bukan berarti itu menjadi the only component to get 6.5 and above, okay? Kalau you ngomong idiomatic expression tapi tidak natural, there is no point. there is no point at all. Am I correct? Karena harusnya you sounds like a native speaker, bahasa itu digunakan dalam konteks yang natural. Lah, terus aku harus gimana, Miss? Ada satu solusi, yaitu kalau bisa menggunakan phrasal verbs. Karena itu bahasanya lebih ringan. I mean like it's more natural. It's like in real life situations.
Yeah.
Jadi itu jauh lebih bagus daripada menggunakan idioms. Pokoknya kalau misalnya misalnya quotionsnya itu susah, Miss, berarti aku harus cari idiomatic expressions yang mengacu kepada itu. Oh, aku bisa pakai, misalnya ini jarang terjadi di negara aku, dia mungkin bisa mengatakan one is in a blue moon. Tapi kalau misalnya itu tidak terlalu cocok dengan konteks yang ditanyakan, cuma karena dia mengira yang penting aku ngomong dan aku dapat checklist aku pakai idioms, hello, itu salah, itu a misconception yang tidak betul. Karena yang paling penting adalah menggunakan bahasa dengan natural as if you are the native speaker in the real life situations, gitu.
Yeah,
Correct?
something like that. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, begitu. Nah, apakah sejauh ini ada questions? Oh, audio saya tampaknya tidak terlalu terdengar dengan baik. Sekarang sudah belum, Mas Admin? Oke, nah ini nampaknya masih ada beberapa questions yang Nisa sudah kumpulkan dari kelas dan sebagainya. Jadi sayang sekali waktu jua yang memisahkan kita. Jadi it's now at 2 p.m. dan kita masih ada kelas. Jadi jangan khawatir, nanti kita insya Allah kalau memang diinginkan kita akan membuat sessions yang kedua yang berhubungan dengan ini. Kan pertama adalah how to prepare for my IELTS test edisi pertama, edisi kedua nanti ada lagi dan questionsnya itu jangan khawatir, itu bisa akan clean up some misconceptions about IELTS. Begitu, Mr. Chris, do you want to say something to the audience before I end up the show?
It's been good to be here. Thank you, Miss Anissa. Her wonderful questions, and I hope to be again here.
Yes, hopefully. Okay, kalau begitu, I will say goodbye and have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Bye.
Have a good one.
hingga jadi ahlinya.